All right.
Very good. Well, welcome to Museums and Change, and thank you all for joining us today. Special thanks to Jason Hanson for presenting today. And I would also like to take an opportunity to introduce two co-hosts of Museums and Change, Ade Gayoso, wave at everybody, thank you, and Andrea Durham. So we are literally coast to coast today, Washington, D.C. and Sacramento. Uh, this is the third of four sessions on America 250. All four sessions are designed to assist museums in thinking more clearly about the anniversary's meanings and programming possibilities. The need to reflect on our nation's history should be apparent to all. This is a moment when the federal government is promoting simplistic, inaccurate, and inauthentic narratives about America then and now. While Americans can differ in their interpretations of American history, our museums are under obligation to convey evidence based, carefully researched interpretations and narratives, even if they provoke disagreement or controversy. The challenge is especially acute beyond the 13 original colonies. The rest of America, and I'm speaking from Philadelphia, is vast, diverse, and locked into what seems to be an intractable divisiveness. A few housekeeping details. The session is being recorded. We will make a link available via the AAM open forum as soon as possible, probably tomorrow morning. Unless you are recognized to speak, please hit your mute button so we don't get noise pollution during the session. If you want or need captioning, please activate captions on your Zoom dashboard. If you want to share a question or comment, please use the raised hand signal. You will go into a queue and I will recognize you as quickly as possible. Do feel free to use the chat function to make comments or pose questions or enter citations of relevant literature. That way we can manage a second parallel conversation. If you want to be added to our email list to receive direct notices of future sessions, please enter your name and email address in the chat or write to me directly via email. We'll happily add you to our list. Our next session will convene in 2 weeks on February 26th, when Ray Arsenault, an expert on the civil rights movement, will talk about America 250 as a new battleground for America's culture wars. Please join us then. I'm speaking to you from Philadelphia, where I live on the ancestral lands of the Lenni Lenape and where the Lenni Lenape still reside. I believe it is our responsibility to learn about the indigenous peoples who lived here before us and to share our knowledge with our colleagues, constituents, and clients. Without further ado, Jason, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Avi. Thank you all for the invitation to speak to this group. I'm honored. Uh, my name is Jason Hanson. I am very lucky to be the Chief Creative Officer at History Colorado. That's my day job. I also moonlight as a member of the America 250 Colorado 150 Commission, which is the statewide commission that has been created in our state to guide uh, anniversary and commemorative activities in the year ahead. I am excited to talk with you all about one of the initiatives that I've been involved with here that I think might be of interest to you. Um, I'm going to start off with a little bit of a confession. It's especially feels a little embarrassing in a group like this because I don't think it will be as earth-shaking to you as it has been to me. Uh, but it is part of the journey that I'm going to describe here. And so I feel like, to be honest, I have to start by telling you that it was only a few years ago, as we were early in the planning process for the America 250 Colorado 150, that I realized that the Star Spangled Banner is a question. Uh, Actually, a series of questions. I know I don't know how I never realized it before. I can't see all of you on screen, but I imagine some of you are running through the lyrics right now, confirming it, and so I'm going to put them on the screen. You see those squiggles at the end of the fourth and the eighth lines? Those are question marks. Um, when you pay attention to the lyrics, our national anthem asks two questions. Does our flag, the symbol of our freedom, still wave? And is it still flying over the nation that we aspire to be? In Francis Scott Key's formulation, the land of the free and the home of the brave. A place where all of us have the right to the equality, security, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness set forth aspirationally in the Declaration of Independence 250 years ago. A place where we celebrate the strength and diversity that has been embodied since 1782 in the national motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, and is still on the dollar or quarter that you might have in your pocket today. A place where Lincoln would say, we cherish a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. Um, it's a little embarrassing to admit this here because, as many of you surely know, the national anthem is a question because Francis Scott Key composed it from a moment of uncertainty during the War of 1812. Uh, we all remember the War of 1812. It got at least a paragraph in everyone's eighth grade history textbook. It's the one where the British tried to take back America. They succeeded in burning the White House and the Capitol. They might have succeeded entirely had they been able to break through the defenses at Fort McHenry in Baltimore's harbor. Francis Scott Key watched from a ship there in the harbor, kind of around where he's hovering right now in the slide, far removed from the action, watching it persist throughout the night. Throughout that night, the outcome of the battle was unclear. Key had questions. He was unsure, and he wrote them down in the Star-Spangled Banner. I think there's something lovely in the fact that we adopted that as our national anthem. If you read the full poem, it grows more triumphalist with each passing verse, but it's that first verse that Americans took to and adopted ultimately as our national anthem. And those questions, I think, still resonate in many of the conversations I've had about this America 250 anniversary today. And I'm guessing that they are in some of the conversations that you are having as well. Maybe they are your own questions. Perhaps you are not sure, or the people that you are working with are not sure what we are commemorating, what we are celebrating, whether it is okay to celebrate, whether our polarization has poisoned what otherwise could be a moment of unity. It can feel a little bit like this slide right now. It is a bombardment out there sometimes when you're talking about American history. But the people my fellow commissioners and I have spoken with in Colorado, we've spent a couple of years now traveling all over our little patch of mountains and mesas and plains, different communities, different walks of life. What I hear consistently is they want the barrage to end. They want a moment of unity. They tell us they hope that the 250 can provide it. They are not sure it can. People who are uncertain about the way things are going, I think, the way things should go, they need people and places to help work it out, to give us the space to think through these questions in a thoughtful manner. And that's what I think museums at our best can help provide during this anniversary. It's what we're trying to provide at History Colorado, with some of the examples that I am going to share in a moment. But as an important piece of context to how we are approaching these anniversaries in Colorado, another thing that I need to say here is when I'm talking with my fellow Coloradans and when I'm talking with fellow Westerners from around the rest of the region, the nation's anniversary just feels differently out west. In fact, early on in our planning process, I was asked by a reporter at a national publication based on the East Coast whether Colorado would even be participating in the America 250 in any meaningful way because nothing was really going on out here. in 1776. Uh, and it's true. I think when most of us think of the events of 1776 in Colorado and throughout the West, more comes to mind than the Revolution. In 1776, as the delegates were debating independence in Philadelphia, Fathers Dominguez and Escalante were leading a Spanish scouting expedition up the western slope of the Rocky Mountains through what is today Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico. They were adding to Spanish knowledge about the tribes that called this place home. I am speaking to you from sunny Denver, Colorado, homeland of the Ute, the Comanche, the Kiowa, the Apache, the Arapaho, the Cheyenne. We count 51 tribes who have ancestral ties to this land. Uh, they were exploring less than a century after the Spanish had been expelled entirely during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, and what some historians, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, call the First American Revolution, the most successful indigenous resistance movement in the New World. The Pueblos united up in an uprising that forced the Spanish out of what was then the northern reaches of the Spanish Empire and the New World for more than a dozen years before they could finally re-enter. And they were exploring tentatively up into the places that I call home today. As those delegates were debating declarations of independence in Philadelphia, out in San Francisco, the Spanish were founding the city just several days before the declaration was issued. So there is just a little hint of what is going on out west. And stories like this are why it feels important here for our audiences at our museums to approach the America 250 anniversary differently than our friends in the OG 13 colonies or some of the eastern states. Out west, it feels like the anniversary means celebrating our American ideals, but also reckoning with the overlapping histories that I think sometimes feel a little bit more tangible out here. We explore some of those stories, particularly the Dominguez and Escalante journey, in our exhibition, Expedition 1776. We also, as part of our suite of exhibitions for these anniversaries in Colorado, since it is the 150th anniversary of the Centennial State, you all are celebrating the semi-quincentennial. Here in Colorado, we are celebrating the sesquisemi-quincentennial. It is twice as nice here in Colorado because we have these twin anniversaries. 38th Star is our look at the 5 attempts to become a state and the reason the first 4 failed before we got there. But our fullest exploration of the America 250 anniversary through a Western lens is Moments That Made Us, that bottom line there. This is our marquee exhibition at the History Colorado Center this year. It opened in November. It will run through October. It is, I would suggest, a uniquely Western take on what we are commemorating as we mark 250 years of American independence. Of course, I don't want to like throw shade here. I know that Avi is in Philadelphia. I know we are coast to coast on this call, but I imagine many of you are in the East Coast. A big part of the anniversary of any anniversary is the occasion that we are remembering. In this case, the issuance of the Declaration of Independence, specifically the Revolutionary War more broadly. I am very grateful that we have, Ken Burns doing the American Revolution and so many museum exhibitions throughout the country, especially along the East Coast, perhaps at your museums, focusing on the revolution in really creative and thoughtful ways. It makes sense that in the eastern United States, the revolution would be the focus of this anniversary. It's history where it happened, and I am grateful to everyone leading that effort and their willingness to share. In fact, we were able to obtain some really extraordinary colonial and revolutionary era artifact loans for our exhibit, thanks to the generosity of many of our counterparts in the East. But I would suggest that if the American experiment was begun on the East Coast and crystallized in the Declaration of Independence nearly 250 years ago, it was often as the nation moved west that we determined what those ideals in the Declaration would mean. And Moments That Made Us is our effort at History Colorado to examine how the ideals that are central to the Declaration of Independence have shaped our shared American history. So it is not the focus on the revolution, it is the next 250 years. And to do that, we focused on 50 turning points in American history. And we did our best to open a window into each of them for our visitors by assembling a really extraordinary selection of artifacts. Um, I'm just going to share a few of them here. When we are talking about the 250th anniversary, we begin, of course, far before simply the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We begin our story with the domestication of corn, which is what you see in the top left of the screen there. That is a corn cob from Mesa Verde here in Colorado. It dates to about 1200, but we know that corn was domesticated in Mexico about 4,000 years ago, is our best evidence right now. It was corn that allowed societies to grow and thrive in stable locations. It was corn, in fact, that the early English settlers, those who were successful, used to uh, survive in the New World. You see a tobacco pipe there from Jamestown made by Robert Cotton in about 1610. Moving forward, to the Revolution, we feel very fortunate to have George Washington spurs from Valley Forge. They come with a great story, a lesson in leadership. Uh, the Carolina parakeet there, Lewis and Clark. Clark's journal records large flocks of them in Nebraska. They have been extinct for more than a century at this point, but a sense of that world that they were expanding into. Uh, in the circle there is lead type from in Cherokee, used to set the Cherokee Phoenix and later Bibles in Cherokee, found along the Trail of Tears. So Indian removal, we have the inkwell that General Lee and General Grant used to sign the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, a Chinese identity card that Chinese men were forced to carry after the Chinese Exclusion Act, 1882. Uh, a ballot from Colorado in 1893. Colorado, not the first state in the country where women could vote, but the first state where women won the vote through a popular referendum, meaning a vote of men that agreed that this was the way it ought to be. Um, the ledger book there in the bottom corner, that is the membership ledgers for the Ku Klux Klan in Denver in the 1920s. We estimate that about a third of the city's white men were members of the Klan in the mid 20s. Of course, it's a secret society and it is hard to know all of the details, but most historians think that Colorado was right up there with Indiana in terms of Klan membership during the second generation of the Klan. Um, What's really extraordinary about those ledgers, in addition to the fact that we have them at all, is the banality of evil. They kept excellent records of everybody's dues, their home address, and their work address. During COVID, we were able to digitize the ledgers, make them searchable, and then map where people worked and lived so that we could see the concentrations in government, in the police, in the banking sector, in certain businesses, in a way that really has made the concept of structural racism much more visible and concrete for our audience. Jackie Robinson's baseball bat, Major League Baseball, being the very first major American institution to embrace integration. Um, and the yearbook from 1958, Little Rock Central High School, showing the Little Rock Nine, the students that desegregated Little Rock's public schools. Uh, just a sense. Obviously, there are many more, but I wanted to give you a sense that we really did swing for the fences with this in terms of trying to bring together a collection of artifacts that certainly our audiences in Colorado and the Rocky Mountains aren't used to seeing all together Um, it's not just a tour through really extraordinary pieces of American history, though. Each of those artifacts we interpret from three different perspectives. And I think that's where this exhibition starts to become a little bit special. Um, I like to cite this artifact as an example of how we do that. This is one of the first uh, printings of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, printed in Mexico City in 1848. Uh, it is what would have been circulated to Mexican families living in the territory that had been ceded to the United States from Mexico during the Mexican-American War. With the passage of, or with the signing of that treaty, we look at how most Americans uh, interpreted this moment first as a moment of manifest destiny. Finally, the nation stretches from sea to shining sea. But perceptive Americans, and we cite Ralph Waldo Emerson here, see it also as a moment that will make civil war difficult to avoid as the fight over whether these will be free or slave territory takes center stage over the next several decades. Of course, if you were a Mexican family living in that territory, a common phrase here in Colorado is, "I didn't cross the border crossed me." Many of these families had been living in the region, either in New Mexico, Colorado, or Southern California for generations at this point. They had a year to decide whether they would go back to Mexico, back being a pretty subjective term for a place that they hadn't lived for generations, or whether they would stay in the United States and take their chances. Those that did often found that they were dispossessed of their land over the next several decades. We cite Maria Amparo Ruiz de Bruton as one of those who was dispossessed, fought for her land for a number of years outside of San Diego, and then fictionalized it in a novel that did not elicit the sympathy that she had hoped. And then finally, if you were a native person living in that territory, which was the vast majority of the population in that territory, this was another empire with another paper claim to your tribal homelands, uh, and you had to figure out how to navigate that relationship going forward. So, one event, three very different perspectives on it, even more than three. We do that with each of these. And doing it this way made the exhibition the most complex one that our team has ever worked on. It's hard enough, we all know, to write good interpretation sort of in the singular for these events. We know it also asks a lot of our audience to hold three different perspectives in tension on a single artifact or a single moment. But we were committed to it because we wanted to encourage people to consider these turning points literally as moments where the country turns. You can turn left, you can turn right, you can turn backwards, you can turn forwards. They look differently. That course looks differently depending on who you are. It's not the linear, progressive, agreed upon meaning, simple cause and effect way that history is often taught. Um, but we thought that that agreed upon meaning, simple cause and effect way might actually be part of the reason that our history has come to seem so contentious these days. And why any adjustments or proposed adjustments to the accepted narrative have come to seem like they are a zero-sum proposition that has winners and losers and must be fought over. We think that this additive kind of empathy-driven approach to history might be in some very small way an antidote to the poisonous polarization that so many of us and so many of the people we've talked with are concerned about. And we really wanted to give visitors a chance to experience that. As visitors come to the end of this exhibition, we invite them to consider our moment. I wanted to show you an image of how we are displaying these artifacts. You can see that we really do lean into the motif of turning points by inviting people to move all the way around them. Those three perspectives that I outlined are on the circular panels around the case. So, each angle does bring you a different perspective. It's maybe a little bit on the nose, but we hope it helps people really consider those different perspectives. Um, in this case, 2020, our moment, it's hard to see, but we have on display one of the first vials of COVID vaccine that was administered in Colorado. We have that Black Lives Matter poster that was carried at one of the protests here in Denver. And then we have the gas mask and the pen that Representative Jason Crow from Colorado had with him in the House chamber on January 6th. When he said he's a former Army Ranger, he said when the chamber was locked down, he looked around for what he could use to help fight his way out, and that was all he found. Um, we wanted to end on this moment because, oh, and I'm sorry, I have the quote there. It was covered up by my by the Zoom screen, but uh, each of these, you can't see it in the kiosk here because it's on the back side of that upright panel. We have quotes, we're trying to ground this in first person experiences. These are not the History Colorado's team's interpretation of these perspectives. We have first person quotes about each of these, but we decided for this one to go back to that last line of the Declaration of Independence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. Um, it brings the theme back full circle for us, invokes the notion that America has always been a collaborative project. Our hope is not to stir controversy with this ending, but to put it in the context of 49 other moments in which uh, Americans in previous generations have faced consequential moments and have had the agency to impact the outcome of those moments, uh, charting hopefully that course that we are all aspiring to toward our more perfect union. The hope is that this is empowering, um, that seeing the way that people have dealt with difficult times and come through them will be empowering to our visitors to think about our own tumultuous moment and how we can come through it. Uh, we're very proud of Moments That Made Us. We think it's a constructive way for museums to help our patrons engage with this anniversary. We were tickled that Jill Lepore agreed and called it a remarkably thoughtful approach in the New Yorker a little while ago. And that is why we decided to make it available more broadly. And I just want to end by explaining what we are doing. I know you've all seen a million good museum exhibits. This is where I think this gets a little more interesting. Uh, again, in response to what we were hearing from our counterparts throughout the West, as well as smaller museums throughout Colorado, that didn't feel like a strict focus on the revolution resonated with their audiences, and that they weren't really equipped to offer that anyway. Um, we worked with a coalition of our fellow state historical museums and anniversary commissions to create a distilled and customizable version of Moments That Made Us, which we are offering for free to anyone who would like to host it. Rather than the 50 turning point moments that you see in the gallery at History Colorado, we've selected 5 themes from the Declaration of Independence: the pursuit of happiness, consent of the governed, created equal, free, and independent states, and we mutually pledge to each other. We've organized 3 of our moments under each of those to help explore how our thinking about those pieces, those aspirations in the Declaration has evolved in different places and at different times, how they have been expressed or negotiated or fought over at different moments in our history. We are offering it for free as a print-on-demand file set with an implementation guide that provides suggestions on a variety of ways that local host sites can customize it to resonate with their local audiences. We recognize that maybe not every moment is going to feel as resonant in every community So this is all modular. People can display the ones that work for them, can focus in on the themes that they think will resonate most with their audience. Do not need to feel compelled to find a way to display the full set in its entirety. We are sending blank templates so that host sites can add their local stories that fit with these themes and not make it look like the janky add-on that we're all familiar with traveling exhibits, where you try to retrofit something, some local content into an exhibit. Um, and then we have an implementation guide with suggestions of how you can leverage your museum's collections or your community collecting opportunities in ways that we think could enrich the experience for visitors. Um, it's a new model as far as we can tell. We haven't encountered something like this. We thought, uh, it seemed so clear to us as we originally thought it up. And then we looked for models, we couldn't find any, and then we encountered lots and lots of questions along the way that made it clear to us why this was a new model, because it wasn't as straightforward as we thought it would be. But we released it 2 weeks ago, and as of this morning, I just checked. The early indications are that it really is meeting a need. In addition to the 11 state partners that you saw listed on the previous slide. More than 100 sites in 16 states have downloaded the files already. They are not just in the West. We are seeing it in Missouri, Michigan, Ohio, South Carolina, Virginia, Florida. Um, they are not just museums. They're, of course, museums seem to be the primary audience, but we are also seeing libraries, local archives, county fairs, Daughters of the American Revolution chapters downloading it. And Arizona's Mobile Museum actually has made it the centerpiece of its semi-trailer museum that it is towing around the state starting this morning. Actually, I just got a text from their organizer that it is on the road. So very exciting there. Um, we are really excited to share this exhibit. I'm really excited to share it here with you. We think, like I said, it is well suited to this moment, to helping museums meet this moment by encouraging visitors to approach our shared American history not as that zero-sum linear progression to the present, but with empathy for different perspectives and a sense of empowerment that, like our predecessors, we have the agency to shape our future. And we're excited by the model that it might offer going forward for future collaborative exhibitions throughout the sector, meeting a need that we know is out there. Um, I will end there, and I am happy to hear any thoughts, questions, or just have a discussion with you all. Thank you so much for the time to share that.
Thank you very much, Jason. If you could pull the screen share, that'll get us back to our normal screen. There we go. Um, this is a wonderful project and wonderful presentation both. I have to tell you, I'm a sucker for a good phraseology, and the ink is still drying. Got me by the throat right off the bat. It's a brilliant, wonderful, wonderful image. And any project that can produce a phrase like that is worth its weight in gold. So terrific. Um,
Oh, thank you. I will pass that along. We had a team of three, which included myself as the primary writers, and we had an introduction written. And then my colleague, Dr. Gwen Lockman, wrote that phrase, and we had to scrap the introduction we had and rewrite around the concept that the ink was still drying. We agreed it was too good.
Yeah, the very often I've found with exhibitions and with programming in general that beginnings and endings are critical. And if you can catch people at the front end in particular, you're home free. The middles take care of themselves, but the getting them in there and establishing a frame of reference is really for, very important base information. And that kind of phraseology is just wonderful. I also applaud your use of innovative technology. Um, by the way, out of curiosity, did NEH put money into this project?
We did receive a $10,000 NEH grant for this.
Okay. fine. Emlyn, you're on.
Well, Abby, thank you for firstly bringing this phenomenal story to Museums and Change. Um, I should make a sort of a respectful confession at the beginning, as the speaker did, with my accent. I need to tell you that I have three citizenships in this order, British, Canadian, and American. And so I view, as an earth scientist, the whole 250 thing, if I can be crudely mentioning it that way, as an anthropological phenomenon, anthropology being the art and science of the history of human thought. And I think what I just want to suggest, and it resonates with the frequency with which we saw on the slides, that the exhibition experience asks questions rhetorically, which I think is an overlooked and very powerful way of delivering material. I was struck by it with what I think remains this country's most successful touring exhibition in terms of numbers of venues and duration of the total tour. And that was the American Anthropological Association's exhibition called Race, Are We So Different? Which has finally ended its tour, but was surely a very profound experience that hit a nerve in a country that then, in the early part of this millennium, and still is struggling with that question. And I just want to say that the first panel in this exhibition is literally a world map, and it asks the question, or it makes the statement, we are all out of Africa and we've been moving and mixing ever since, which is an evocative, provocative phrase. We are all out of Africa and we've been moving and mixing ever since. And so I think that what I want to do is just sort of applaud the use of questions rather than statements, which we so often put in front of exhibition titles. I think the asking of questions gets people to think much more quickly and easily than simply stating something in front of them rather than asking a question of them. So thank you for the brilliant presentation.
Well, thank you. And yes, I also saw Race, Are We So Different in two locations, actually. So I think you are right. And it was brilliant.
Great. Other questions and comments? Oh my goodness.
I said it all.
I'm not sure about that, but
There were some comments in the chat, Avi. Oh, it looks like Annie's got her hand up as well.
yeah, yeah.
Hi guys. Sorry, my internet is not behaving well today, so I'm worried if I turn the video on, I might get booted out of there. But beautiful presentation, and I'm curious, do you have plans, or are you or any of the partners that worked on this with you developing curriculum that schools could use already?
Not in a very organized way, I would say, Annie. We have aspirations more than plans. I think some of our partners, I didn't get into it, but we had a small working group that worked on adapting the History Colorado exhibition into the print-on-demand community exhibition. And then we have partners in 11 states who are really taking the lead on distributing it to smaller museums within those states. Some of them I know have talked about curriculum, but there's not a more organized approach to it. And I would be very happy to learn more and work with you.
I'm very interested because everything we do is digital and it's all free. And I always am looking for ways to get really great museum content out there. We partner with people in this group and others. So if that's something you're interested in exploring, we have a way to push things out very easily, and it would be free to everybody. So if that's something, I didn't want to step on any toes if you already had your own curriculum, people, but that's something that we can do since we don't have a physical space like a museum. We're sort of a digital museum. So I just, that it's so exciting to see this. And I have had this talk with teachers outside the 13 states that are, everybody's hyper focused on that East Coast with the America 260 hoopla. And I think I keep reminding people there's a lot of other states. It's their celebration or commemoration, depending on how you look at it too. So I think the Western states being included in all this is really exciting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my email was on that last slide. I don't know if you caught it. It's my name, jason.hanson at state.co.us, CO for Colorado, US for the United States. Please reach out. Avi also knows how to get a hold of me.
For sure. Emily, are you raising your hand?
I am. I have a further question or suggestion. Um, the museum history in the States is peppered with efforts to try and do provocative things, but they don't end up so well. Or there is a shyness, a timidity at the end of the intention. I'm going to just recall what happened when I was at the helm of Liberty Science Center opposite Lower Manhattan in the years after 9/11, where we had an exhibition purposely from the Persian Gulf called 1,000 Years of Knowledge Rediscovered from the Arab world on the Islamic contributions to science, which we were aware would be probably provocative and controversial, and indeed it was. I remember calls from members of the military who had served in the Persian Gulf area and who approached me in no pleasant manner to say, what the hell was I doing by bringing this topic into the Hudson area within sort of sight and sound of 9/11 and the World Trade Towers, which weren't there anymore. And over time, with conversation, they came to realize that it was probably enlightened, if I may, that we actually wanted to confront a contribution by this culture that was being blamed at that time in terms of their history of contribution to the betterment of humankind. And so I think everybody and I wonder if you've prepared this is my question, sorry for the delay. I hope that you are preparing for the controversy that's going to emanate from displaying this. Not everybody's going to go in with a rah-rah that you've done a wonderful thing by asking these questions. There's going to be demonstrations. There's going to be objection, especially when you consider the temperament of the country. So I wonder if you've prepared for controversy.
Uh, Thank you for the question. And wow, what an experience that you're drawing on. I think we are, as best as anyone can be, prepared for any kind of reaction to this. History Colorado, we feel very fortunate, ever more so in our current political climate, that we are relatively secure. I hear from my colleagues in other locations around the country who maybe are having their funding threatened over programming that they've done on LGBTQ history or some other topic that their legislature or their board or their patrons finds objectionable. We are not really in that position right now in History Colorado. And so we feel a little bit of an obligation, I think, to hold the space that museums have in our culture for truthfully exploring some of these topics, for helping people really reflect on how we got to now, which is the guiding star that we talk about pretty regularly at History Colorado. And we know that that doesn't always fit tidily into everyone's hopes and dreams for how we talk about history. This is why, I mentioned a couple times in my remarks the zero-sum approach to how people are talking about history these days. I think it sounds a little bit like that's what you dealt with. If we highlight the positives about something, that necessarily is detracting in some way or insulting from another narrative that people want to hold on to. And I think the short answer is this is not the first time that we have leaned toward what we think of as a fairly relevant exploration of how we got to now. And we've been ready in the past, but also what we have found is maybe a little bit different from your experience, Mr. Coster. That controversy has never materialized yet at the level that we were prepared for it. And we have a lot of theories about the way that we go about the work that maybe helps tamp down some of that in Colorado. I mean, the context is different than being in Lower Manhattan. But we we're ready for it, but we have also found that a lot of the work we've done, I didn't get into the details, but with each of those moments, we were uh, wherever possible reaching out to people whose stories um, we were representing there, making sure that we were doing a faithful and accurate job of representing their perspectives. And I think that kind of work hopefully insulates us a little bit from the accusations and controversy that might come with us pushing a particular agenda.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the wonderful answer. Siobhan Stars had a comment that Smithsonian Natural History does this with do-it-yourself exhibitions, and I wasn't quite clear whether she was referring to the 3D printing or whether she was referring to some other aspect of the thing. Siobhan, if you're on, do you want to clarify, please? All right. We're going to have to look up do-it-yourself exhibitions at Smithsonian to find out more about them, clearly.
Well, and there are, just to mention, Avi, I don't want to, again, insult anyone. Print on demand exhibitions are not a new idea. What was new about this one for us was the pathways to customize it that we were trying to provide. That required a decision to surrender a lot of control that museums don't typically like to surrender. Um, and I highlighted that we're all in it together line from the Declaration of Independence because that was ultimately what our group sort of decided is we're all in this together and we can't control what everyone does and they might not do everything exactly the way that we hope they would do, but we believe that everyone will be acting from the best of intentions and it will be a net positive, even if giving up that control creates some difficulties along the way. And that was the piece, trying to solve for that. That really felt new about this.
Great. Thank you. That is an important clarification. Questions or comments? It's possible we'll actually end early today. This is a minor miracle in our time. Jason, I want to thank you and your project team for an extraordinary project and a wonderful presentation today. I want to thank all the participants for joining us today. We will look forward to talking about some of the controversies that have emerged during the 250th year. I think that we will be talking about some of the consequences of taking stances during a time of real political divisiveness. I want to remind everybody that I saw a wonderful phrase, our mutual moment. All of us are living in that moment, and I think that our humanistic endeavors require us to take an empathetic view, as Jason and his team have been able to do, of all of our fellow Americans as we celebrate a national anniversary. So I thank everyone for joining us today. I will look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, and we will have the link to today's recording up tomorrow on AAM Open Forum. Thank you, take care, and be well.
Thank you for the opportunity.